Disclaimer. If you were looking at a standard map of the global economy, you are looking at a ghost. The official charts show America is still on top, but they are hiding a $26 trillion hole in the ledger. A wealth transfer so massive it means the map you're using expired over a decade ago. Open the IMF's own ledger. In the paper reality of derivatives and services, the US leads. But in the physical reality, steel, cement, ships, the crossover happened in 2014. China didn't just catch up, they passed us. That is a massive gap in purchasing power that the official exchange rates ignore. It's like hollowing out a skyscraper from the inside, while the paint on the outside still looks fresh. You don't need a chart to see it. You feel this transfer every time you open your wallet. But the ledger has a second column. There's a trap hidden in the demographics that suggests the winner is not who you think it is. We do not guess about the future here. We read the living record. Welcome to the archive. To understand how the map changed, we must return to the moment the ink was still wet, the year 2000. It feels like a different civilization. You could still walk into a store and find "Made in the USA" stamped on your appliances. The supply chains were short, and the dollar was the undisputed king of a unipolar world. But the global economic power shift that would dissolve that world wasn't announced with an explosion. It began on a specific Tuesday, December 11th, 2001. One signature changed the laws of economic physics. This is the protocol on the accession of China to the World Trade Organization. Most Americans have felt the consequences of this document, but very few have ever looked at the text. Look at the clause on import quotas and licensing. When the pen lifted from this page, the trade barriers that had protected Western labor markets for 50 years didn't just lower, they evaporated. This wasn't a diplomatic handshake. It was the legal authorization for capital to exit the building. You might remember the warning about a giant sucking sound. That wasn't just political rhetoric, it was a prediction of fluid dynamics. In a free market, capital flows like water, always downhill to the lowest cost of production. The moment those legal dams were breached in 2001, the flow became a flood. Factories weren't just closing in Ohio and Pennsylvania. They were being disassembled, crated, and shipped across the Pacific. We watched the container ships literally reverse their direction. It wasn't a theft in the night. It was a transfer we signed for. Here's the forensic evidence. This is the chart for global manufacturing value added. In 2000, the American line is dominant, and China is a flat line near the bottom. But watch the trajectory immediately after the signature. The US line flatlines. The China line goes vertical. We didn't lose the trade war in the last few years. We surrendered it in 2001, but the obvious question is, why? Why would the architects of the system sign away their own dominance? Because they fell into a trap. There's a specific file in the archives that names this paradox the reserve currency curse. On the surface, holding the world's reserve currency feels like an exorbitant privilege. It allows the government to print money that other nations are forced to absorb. But for the working class, this privilege acts like a parasite. It creates a split reality. It is a paradise for the financial sector that trades the currency, but a graveyard for the industrial sector that has to compete with it. While Wall Street celebrates the liquidity, Main Street suffocates under the artificial strength of the dollar. This is the mechanism behind the reserve currency collapse, a paradox first identified by a Belgian economist named Robert Triffin. Let me explain the Triffin Dilemma using a scenario you can feel. Imagine you run a general store, but you have a unique rule. You pay your customers to shop there. You print your own IOUs and hand them out. The customers take your IOUs and use them to empty your shelves. And at first, this feels like magic. You get goods for free paper. But here's the trap. The customers don't just burn those IOUs, they save them. And eventually, when the pile gets high enough, they don't want the milk or the eggs anymore. They use that pile of paper to buy the deed to your store. This is the mathematical requirement of the system. To provide the world with dollars, the United States must run trade deficits. We must export our currency so the world has enough liquidity to trade. But to export dollars, we have to import goods. We essentially traded our factories for cheap credit. It wasn't an accident. It was the price of admission for the empire. And here's the receipt. This is the most painful chart in American economic history. It tracks productivity versus real wages. From 1948 until the early 70s, these two lines moved in lockstep. When workers made more, they got paid more. But look at the moment the mechanism broke. Right here in 1971, the jaws of the snake open. productivity continued to skyrocket. We got better computers, faster machines, and harder workers. But the wages flatlined. Where did the wealth go? It went to service the deficit. It went to the financial sector. This gap between what you produce and what you earn is the Triffin Dilemma coming directly out of your paycheck. You have been working harder to subsidize the world's reserve currency. To see where America is going, we must look at the ledger of where Britain went. The year is 1944. The location is the Mount Washington Hotel in Bretton Woods, New Hampshire. The British delegation arrived here not as conquerors, but as debtors. They had fought 2 world wars on credit, and the bill had finally come due. While the soldiers were celebrating victory on the battlefield, the treasurers were accepting an unconditional surrender in the ledger. Britain's debt-to-GDP ratio had exploded to 250%. They were technically insolvent. It was an accounting defeat that ended an empire. In this room, the torch was passed. It was the turning point in the history of world reserve currencies. The pound sterling died so the dollar could live. Now, look at the other side of the screen. This is the United States in 2026. Visually, these 2 eras look nothing alike. Mathematically, they are identical. We are currently witnessing a global economic power shift driven by the exact same metric that dissolved the British Empire: the cost of servicing the past. This year, the United States government will spend more on interest payments to bondholders than it spends on its entire defense budget. We have crossed the Rubicon of $1 trillion. We aren't fighting a world war, but our ledger looks like we are. The empire isn't collapsing in a fiery explosion. It is liquidating, dollar by dollar, to pay for the debts of the previous century. This is what we call the empire's clock. History doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. And this rhyme is perfect. When the cost of yesterday's debt exceeds the cost of today's defense, the empire stops expanding and starts shrinking. It is the moment when the physics of the system turn against the host. The British saw it in 1944. We are seeing it right now. It is a mathematical inevitability. Once you cross that interest threshold, you cannot grow your way out. You can only inflate your way out. But every collapse has a starting gun. The modern debt cycle began precisely on the Sunday evening of August 15th, 1971. President Nixon interrupted the popular show Bonanza to deliver a message that would fundamentally alter the chemistry of the global economy. He announced he was closing the gold window. Listen to the specific language he used. I have directed Secretary Connolly to suspend temporarily the convertibility of the dollar into gold. That word, temporarily, is the most expensive lie in financial history. It has been over 50 years, and that window never reopened. In that moment, the dollar ceased to be a store of value backed by metal and became a political tool backed by faith. The discipline of the ledger was removed, and the era of unlimited debt began. The world was furious. European finance ministers rushed to Washington, demanding to know why their national reserves had just been devalued by American decree. They were met by Treasury Secretary John Connolly. He didn't offer an apology. He offered a dictum that defines the geopolitical tension we see today. He told them, "The dollar is our currency, but it's your problem." That sentence planted the seeds for the revolt we are watching right now. If you want dedollarization explained, you don't look at BRIC summits in 2024. You look at the arrogance of 1971. The world accepted the abuse because there was no alternative. But that monopoly created a false sense of security in Washington, a belief that we could print forever without consequence. So, the historical script seems clear. America abused the privilege of the reserve currency, accumulated too much debt, and now, just like the British before us, we are passing the torch to the rising power. This is the standard narrative. If you look at the GDP charts, the manufacturing output, and the debt clocks, the conclusion is mathematical and inevitable. China takes the crown, and the US fades into a second-tier power. That is what the experts say. That is what the linear projection says. But linear projections are dangerous because they assume the players will stay the same size. They forgot to check the birth certificates. The standard script says China wins, but that script ignores the biological reality. Empires are not just lines on a graph. They are made of people, and China is running out of them. While we have been obsessed with their GDP growth, we missed the biological reality underneath. The transfer of wealth we talked about is real, but the recipient is dying. Let me show you the scariest chart in the world. It isn't a debt clock, and it isn't a stock ticker. It is a census. This is China's population pyramid. In 1980, it looked like a mountain, a massive base of young workers ready to build the factories and pave the roads. This was the engine of the miracle. But watch what happens when we fast forward to the present day. The mountain has inverted. It has become a funnel. This shape represents a demographic collapse that has no historical precedent. We are looking at a structure where one single working-age child is expected to support 2 parents and 4 grandparents. That math is impossible. This isn't an economy anymore. It's a nursing home. Since 2014, the exact same year their GDP crossed over ours, their working-age population has shrunk by over 40 million people. That is the equivalent of the entire population of California vanishing from the workforce. They built the greatest industrial machine in history, but they forgot to build the next generation to run it. Biology is the one ledger you cannot forge. And the young people they do have, they are checking out. The data on youth unemployment became so bad that the government simply stopped publishing it for months. There's a social movement in China called lying flat, a generation realizing that working for the empire is a losing bet. This is the trap nobody talks about. While the US is drowning in debt, China is drowning in age. If you want the full deep dive on this demographic cliff, subscribe to the channel because we are going to dedicate an entire report to it. But for now, understand this. It isn't a transfer of power. It is a race to the bottom. And because they are losing that race, they are aggressively liquidating their position in the American empire. Look at the chart of China's US Treasury holdings. For years, Beijing held over $1 trillion of American government debt. It was the financial glue holding the geopolitical relationship together. But look at the cliff on the right side of the chart. They have aggressively liquidated down to $700 billion. This isn't just a portfolio rebalancing. This is a geopolitical divorce. They are liquidating their relationship, selling the debt of a rival they no longer trust, and they are doing it at record speed. You need to understand the mechanics of this sale. When a major creditor dumps bonds onto the market, the price of those bonds crashes. And when the price crashes, the interest rate, the yield, spikes. It is exactly like a whale investor dumping a stock to crash the company. China knows that by flooding the market with paper, they are taking a loss on the face value. But they are willing to burn their own capital to set fire to the dollar's value. They are paying a premium to inflict strategic pain on the American ledger. They are weaponizing the very debt we sold them. This is the definition of the race to the bottom. China is drowning in age, so they are forced to liquidate assets to pay for their elderly. America is drowning in debt, so we desperately need buyers to keep our interest rates low. But the biggest buyer is walking away from the table. This standoff forces U.S. interest rates higher, which directly impacts your mortgage and suffocates the domestic economy. In this divorce, there is no winner. There are only casualties. The rising power is too old to lead, and the falling empire is too broke to fight. You do not have to guess the destination. You simply have to track the central bankers' private ledgers. In the last few years, global central banks bought gold at the fastest pace since 1967. We are talking about back-to-back years of over 1,000 tons purchased annually. These are the very institutions that print the fiat currency. They are going on television telling you the paper is safe, while behind closed doors, they are frantically trading that paper for metal. They aren't listening to the news. They are looking at the math. This is the loudest signal in financial history. Why gold? Because in a world built on debt, gold is the only Tier 1 asset that is not someone else's liability. If you hold a bond, you rely on a government to pay you. If you hold a stock, you rely on a company to profit. But gold relies on nothing. It is the only entry on the balance sheet that stands alone. When the ledger burns, gold remains. The institutions know that this isn't about getting rich. It is about not getting erased. So what happens when the dollar collapses? The ledger resets to the only neutral reserve asset left standing. In this environment, you don't need a guru telling you what to buy. You need a map to see where you stand. We have compiled the historical survival logs from the 1944 British collapse and the 1971 Nixon Shock into a single assessment framework called the Empire's Clock. It is a checklist of the specific signals that appear right before the window closes. It allows you to audit your own exposure to the transfer we just described, based on the choices previous generations made to survive the exact same transition. The ledger shows the transfer is real. Over $26 trillion has moved. The script from 1944 is playing out perfectly. But the demographic trap reveals that this is not a clean handover of power. It is a race to the bottom between American debt and Chinese aging. In a race where both runners are injured, the goal isn't to predict the winner. It is to survive the collapse of the track. The central banks have already cast their vote by moving record tonnage into gold. We have compiled the specific survival signals from the 1944 and 1971 resets into the Empire's clock checklist. It allows you to audit your exposure to the transition before the window closes. The full analysis of the demographic cliff, the math on the population collapse, is being compiled for the next report. Subscribe to access that file when it opens. Until then, I leave you with the question that will define the next decade. Who breaks first? The US bond market or the Chinese pension system?